Welcome back to Breaking Down Storage Tech. Today we're breaking down a fully hopper locked precision loader by PyraLeft. Now let's get straight into it. So this is a fully hopper locked precision loader. What a precision loader is a filter that loads shulker boxes with a specific item that is chosen by the filter, and which then is used and fills the shulker box. And the precision essentially means that there's no chance that this box right here will go into any neighboring slices. Now this is also A/B tileable, so let's get straight into it. So at the top here we have our filters right here. I believe this is SSI filters. So they use or signal strength independent, so this is where the A/B tileable nature comes from. But basically you have your filter item in here, or your two filter items, doesn't really matter which. We could take redstone or whatever and swap it out equally as well. Nice and easy. Basically what happens is you have your items coming along the water stream on top of this packed ice, and they're aligned just above this hopper right here, so they get picked up by the hopper and go into this. And the reason this works is because the only items you should have going over this are other items, the filter item, and never this filter right here. So basically what will happen is the item will go into here. It will cause this comparator to get an extra signal because of the way that this is calibrated. It will power this redstone wire right here, which will go into this repeater, powering or unpowering this redstone torch, which will unpower this redstone repeater, unpowering this hopper right here, allowing items to flow down. The same thing happens on the other side, except it's just slightly weirder. This redstone wire goes up, powers this block, so it unpowers this redstone torch, unpowering this wire, unpowering this line of repeaters, unpowering this redstone, unpowering this hopper right here. Now, I'm just going to start with this system unhopper locked, so that way we can get a feel for how the system works, and then I can go over the hopper locking in just a second. So, items will filter down all the way down, and we use droppers here just because of the hopper locking, so I'll get to that in a second. But basically they continue down into this box right here, and this box right here, this hopper right here is locked by this redstone torch powering this block, powering this hopper right here. So any items that make its way into this box do nothing at all. But what does happen is this comparator right here takes a readout and powers this block, powering this redstone torch or redstone wire right here. And this is a really common trick, especially for box loaders, but that's used for signal strength comparison to check if something's full. Basically, you pre-power this redstone wire right here with a signal strength of 15. This comes from this redstone block, powering this redstone wire with 15, and one block over it becomes 14. So basically what that means is no matter how much we power this redstone dust right here, whether we have a one item, no item, half an item, all the way up to one stack missing, it will give an output of 14, meaning this redstone wire right here will never update. Only when this shulker box reaches the full level, a full limit. I can even, if I want, go like this. I can go literally up to 63 and nothing will happen until this last one is filled. And then it will power to 15, which will then cause this observer to detect an update in the redstone strength of the wire and kickstart the whole system. What happens when this system does detect that this observer right here has power is what happens is it powers this block, which powers this note block right here, powering this dropper and powering these observer lines, which does a second or something, but we'll just quickly talk about this redstone line right here, which will power this redstone, this block, which is powered, will also power this redstone repeater, which will power this block. Now, the timings are very specific. So the initial powering of this system doesn't really do much, because what happens is it powers this redstone lamp, which powers these two observers, which powers this note block right here and this block, powering this observer right here, which powers this block, which powers this great concrete. Now, what this does is unpower these redstone torches, so that way these droppers and these hoppers get unlocked temporarily. But as this happens, this redstone repeater will kick in, powering this block, which will push this piston up, moving the whole system up. So it'll move this sand up there and this piston up there, which will cause this system to stop taking a readout, because the piston cannot, or the comparator will no longer take a readout from the shulker box through the piston because it's extended. And what happens then is as this piston's extending, this observer detects that it's moving, so it powers, which also powers the whole system again, but that's really not the point. The main point is that this observer will read this signal or read an update in the observer. So it will power this block, which will actually be the piston. Actually no, that I'll do the whole system. So this block is right here. This piston is where this gray concrete powder is, and this gray concrete powder is up in the air right now. But basically what will happen is this signal will power, or this observer will power this comparator, or power the piston through the comparator, which will extend, breaking the box, leaving it in item form to drop down into this hopper, which is unlocked by this repeating signal right here. And this signal runs twice because of the powering and then the unpowering of the redstone lamp, which will cause two signals. The first signal is used to unpower this item hopper and allow this box to flow into the hopper and then into the dropper. And then the repowering, once the whole system locks again, is used to power this redstone torch right here, powering this dropper, which shoots out the item into this bottom water stream to go along into wherever you want it to go. But at the same time, it's also used in the system of putting the shulker box back. So basically, what happened when the piston moved up here is it cut off the comparator readout from the shulker box, which caused the whole system to turn off. So this signal that came from the observer caused it to break and retract, so the piston right here is in place of this concrete powder, just in its normal state. And then once the signal from this redstone repeater dies out, this piston will retract and this whole system will turn off. So this part of the system is pretty much returned to normal. And now we just have an empty air block right here, and this system uses the same repowering that powers the dropper to power this block right here, which will power this dispenser right here, shooting the shulker box right here into this airspace. And that's basically how it gets into this line right here. Nice and simple. Now let's get into the hopper locking. The hopper locking is super simple, really easy to use. It is two main lines, and this one is mainly just a hopper locking line. It's a little bit different than that, but basically it only locks this hopper. This entire line right here, this second input you have to have, is just to power this hopper right here. How this happens is that this lever, or whatever signal you have coming in, will power this block, locking this hopper, which will then power this repeater, powering the next block. So you just imagine the sequence continues. It powers the next block, locking the hopper above, and so on and so forth. So that gets this hopper locked. We can test that right here. You see it's locked right here. I can take out an item and it won't refill the slots. Now, the second one is where most of it happens. So what happens is this input right here will power this block, as well as powering this redstone dust right here. So it's a really nice input to have, and then this is just repeatable. So you just need one input right here to power this block right here, or this block that this lever occupies, and it'll power the whole thing. So it's really nice and convenient to put into your system. So basically, the bottom line, what happens is it powers this redstone wire right here, which powers this repeater, powering this block right here, which powers this redstone wire right here. This powers this repeater, this hopper, and this hopper. By this redstone wire powers these two directly, and it also powers this dispenser right here, powering this hopper right here. Now, on the other side, what happens is it also powers this block right here, which locks these two hoppers right here by powering the block, and then those power the name marine blocks, leaving only this hopper unlocked in terms of the hopper, or the shulker line, which gets powered to this. I should mention, this right here is the shulker line. You basically have your main shulker line that continues on forever and ever, which has your shulker boxes and will have your shulker box input wherever it is, and then that will continue, and the hoppers underneath it just take an output power, filling this dispenser. It does store 9 at a time, which does make it a little bit cumbersome, especially if you stack a ton of these at once. You're gonna have to have the shulker boxes in spare instead of just needing the ones you need. But it's that's one of the only downsides to the system. Now, if you are in more modern versions, you can swap up this composter for any other block. The reason we did do this in old versions with the composter is to stop the hopper from trying to pull items from above, which makes it more lag efficient, especially if they're not locked. But in modern versions, they fixed that, so now you can just have a block above and it does the same function. But it's depending on what version you're using. Now, now that we covered the bottom, we can get into the second bit, which is this right here. So basically, this repeater that gets powered will power this block, which will power this dropper as well, locking this hopper guaranteed. Even if the signal were to overflow, for example, if this were to get a stack and this bottom signal would be turned off because of the power getting to this redstone torch, and this hopper gets unlocked, it will still be locked because of the power coming to this block, to this dropper, to this hopper right here. And we can actually test this by locking this and overflowing the system right here. Or I can actually just break this redstone torch. You can see, oh wait, that is filtering it out. Interesting. So never mind what I just said. Apparently it does not lock this system or this hopper, but that's entirely fine. Because it will lock the two hoppers above. So how it does that is it just takes this redstone dust right here, which powers this block right here, powering this block, which also powers these two, or powers this hopper. So this powers this powers this, and then how this block gets powered in the next slice, or this redstone dust right here gets powered in the next slice, is from this repeater powering the next neighboring block. Now, the reason we actually don't, that I just we just discovered why it doesn't power this, is that what happens is, the thinking is, if this hopper is locked, no input's gonna get in it or get put into the system, so it will lock this hopper. And realistically, this system should never overflow because you're continually cycling out shulker boxes. The only case that this does overflow into there is that this shulker line runs out of shulker boxes, but that's a whole nother can of worms, and that's a whole nother catastrophic failure. But yeah, so overall, really great system. Really simple hopper locking, especially with the fact that the inputs are very linearly next to each other and can be very easily accessed. The filters, really easy to access if you need to change the filters later on. And yeah, just a really good plug and play system. Mainly you would use this for filtering and putting into like a bulk storage or a hybrid storage or whatever you want, rather than like output for farms, because most farms can outproduce the 1x, and then you'd have to stack a bunch of loaders. And then at that point, just use a 2x or a 6x or an 8x even, depending on what farm you have. But yeah, great for storage systems. Yeah, thank you for watching.